Now that we've had some practice with SOHCAHTOA and using the basic trigonometric functions and the inverse of those functions, let's do some practice problems and make sure that we really have the hang of it. Okay, so our goal here is to find everything we possibly can about this triangle, which means we need to know what the length of this side is, what the length of this side is, and what this remaining angle over here is. Alright? So I think the easiest thing to do first would be to figure out what this angle here is, because we know that all interior angles of a triangle must add up to 180 degrees. We can solve for that angle. Let's go ahead and name that one angle theta 2. Okay, so we've got 180 degrees is equal to 90 degrees, which is this one, plus 42 degrees plus theta 2. Alright, so obviously we need to subtract 90 and 42 from both sides. That's my equal sign. Alright, that goes away, and we're left with theta 2 is equal to 48 degrees. Okay, so let's put that in. Alright, the next thing we need to do is figure out the length of these sides. Now we could have started with finding the length of the sides first, because we had an angle and we had a side, and that's all you have to have. Let's write out SOHCAHTOA so that we can see what we're talking about here. Alright, let's say this was the angle that we're going to name our triangle for. What's this side over here going to be called in relation to this angle? Good, that's our side opposite. And what is this one called? Okay, that's our adjacent. And then the longest side of any triangle is called what? Good, the hypotenuse. Okay, so we have this angle to start with, and we have this side over here, the opposite, and let's say we wanted to solve for the adjacent side. So we need to pick one of our trigonometric functions that has adjacent in it. Okay, so that would leave us with the cosine or the tangent function. The cosine function requires you to know the hypotenuse already. We don't know that. The tangent one requires you to know the opposite side already, and we do. So we can use this tangent function, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So let's write that out. The tangent of 42 degrees is equal to the opposite side over the adjacent. Alright, and it is the adjacent side we're after, so we're going to multiply both sides by adjacent. These cancel out over here, and we are left with, oh, wait a second, we need to divide by the tangent of 42 degrees on both sides. And then these will cancel. And now we're left with the adjacent side is equal to 4.5 miles times the tangent of 42 degrees. So the adjacent side equals 4.05181819 miles. Alright, let's take a look at our significant digits. The only side length that we were given was 4.5. How many sig figs does that have? Good, that has 2 significant digits. Okay, so that means that our answer down here can only have 2 significant digits. Here's the first one, here's the second one. But you have to go one place value over and see if that does anything to this one. Using the arcane rounding rule, because this is a 5, we have to round to the positive, or no, to the even number. So that is not going to raise up to 1 because that would make it odd. So we have to leave it at 0. So our final answer there for the adjacent side is going to be 4.0 miles. Okay? Alright, the last thing to do is figure out what the hypotenuse is. You have two choices. You can use the Pythagorean theorem to figure it out, or you can use another trigonometric function to figure it out. Let's go ahead and use trigonometry since that's what we're trying to get practice on here. Okay, so again, we've got this angle, opposite, adjacent, hypotenuse. If that's the thing we're after, we have to pick one of them that has hypotenuse in it. The sine requires you to know opposite, which we do, and the cosine requires you to know the adjacent, which we just figured out. Now, if you use the cosine, you can't use 4.0 as the length of the adjacent side because we rounded this one. So you're going to have to use the long number that the calculator gives you if you choose that one. And because of that, I always choose to go with something that the problem originally gave me, the given information. I don't rely on something that I figured out myself. Just in case I made a mistake, that mistake won't carry on over into other calculations. Alright, so that means we're going to use the sine this time. So let's write that out. The sine of theta is equal to the opposite over the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is the thing we're trying to figure out, so we'll multiply both sides by that. So those cancel. We're going to have to divide both sides by the sine of theta. And those cancel. And that leaves us with the hypotenuse is equal to the opposite side divided by the sine of theta. So now we can plug that in. The opposite side was 4.5 miles, and we've got the sine of 42 degrees. Also, again, make sure that your calculator is in degree mode anytime that you're using trigonometry. Alright, let's plug that into the calculator, and we get that the hypotenuse is equal to 6.725144474 miles. Alright, now again with two significant digits. There's the first one, there's the second one. You have to look over and see if the third place value does anything to the 7, and it does not. So our final answer is that the hypotenuse is equal to 6.7 miles. And that fits in with what we predict should happen. The hypotenuse, we know, is the longest side of any triangle, and that fits in this situation as well. And if you had done Pythagorean theorem, that would have been the exact same answer that you got, and you can check that out for yourself. Alright, here's our next problem. I'm going to go ahead and work this. So if you need time to work this out, and you obviously do, you need to pause the video now. Take a second to figure out everything that you can about the triangle, and then start the video again to see if you got it right. I'll see you back in just a minute. Alright, here is the answer to this triangle. We've got 37 degrees as our theta 2. The opposite side, and notice I must have named it based off of this angle because that's opposite, that's adjacent, here's hypotenuse. The opposite side was 4 meters, the adjacent side was 3 meters. That gives us a classic 3, 4, 5 triangle. So we know that we did the math correctly without even having to really look closely at the work. But there it is, just so that you can see. Alright, let's take a look at another one. Here's the next triangle. Again, I want you to take a minute and go through and try and solve this on your own. You need to figure out what theta 2 is. You need to find out what the length of this side and this side is. Pause the video now and I will put the answers on the screen. Alright, and here is the work for this triangle. We've got 62 degrees for our theta 2. We've got 15.6 miles for opposite side. And we've got 33.2 miles for our hypotenuse. Did you get what I got? Hopefully you did. That is all for this video. Thank you for learning with me today, and I will see you next time.